As I was scrolling on YouTube today, I saw a video called African Pasture and American Atheism, and I was pretty intrigued and decided to watch the video. Within 2 minutes, I had many objections to what was being said and many issues with the points that are being brought up. So I would like to talk about the video today.
Being a pastor who lives in Kenya, you see people either they worship God, they worship the Holy Spirit, or they worship the demonic, or they believe in superstition.
So the funniest part about that is that he's calling other people's beliefs that they worship demonic things and they worship other superstitions. He calls them superstitions after as if there's no founding for them and they have no real purpose to worship those things. As if his religion isn't a superstition itself. It's just so arrogant to me that you would think these other people are worshiping superstitions while you have a book that has a talking, walking snake, a God who is apparently three persons in one, a God who hears, forgives sins, a character called the devil that comes and whispers to us and changes our thoughts and deceives us in order to take us away from the will of that immaterial spirit of the Father. Angels that come and have intercourse with humans, creating giants. A man who's apparently born of a virgin, and apparently he can walk on water and also come back from the dead. Like, how do we not understand that this is also a superstition? How can you act like this and say other people are worshiping superstitions and acting like yours is the real, true, objective truth of the universe? I just don't get this. I don't get this point at all.
There really is no disbelief, but in America we suffer from this deception that there is nothing, that we are governed by nothing. There is no God. He does, and I think that probably has a lot to do with why we don't sing and dance very much. We have nothing to be happy about. We're kind of just sad, like, oh, there's nothing out there. My life is meaningless. Let me just like go about my day, and I'm not very happy all the time.
So I think he's making the common mistake of saying that atheists are all nihilists and that they have no meaning in their lives, they have no purpose for living, and because of that, they have no happiness in their lives in any way. And he lists some examples like, oh, we don't play music and we don't dance and we're not happy all the time. First, I would say name a person who believes in God who is always happy, who is never going through some kind of hardship and is sad in some kind of way. From the point of this argument, what you're trying to say is that if you're a theist, you will be happy all the time. Also, his point is just simply incorrect. There's plenty of atheists that are musicians. There's plenty of atheists that are artists. Alex O'Connor played guitar before he started making videos on religion and philosophy. You call him baby. We're not talking lately. I myself also play guitar all the time and paint things, so I don't understand where this point is coming from that atheists just don't do anything in their lives and they don't enjoy anything, they don't find happiness in anything. You can find happiness within your family, you can find happiness with your friends, you can find happiness in your community, which is what a lot of theists do. So I don't understand this point of, oh, they're just negative all the time and they're sad all the time and they have no purpose in their lives.
What do you think about the pure disbelief and atheism that you see in America?
You know, there's an element of worship in a human being.
No, there isn't. That's just simply not true. What is in human beings is a sense of awe and curiosity and wonder. And when we fully don't understand something, we end up worshiping that thing because we see it as beyond us. We see it as something more than us. It could be anything from mountains to the ocean to the sky, the sun, or whatever God you want to imagine that you want to worship. Obviously, if you create something imaginary that is beyond yourself, yeah, you're going to want to worship it. But I think what a lot of theists get wrong about this whole point is they're using worship like dedicate your life to that thing, like they do with their God when they go to church. But I think what they're confusing it with is finding meaning in something. I don't see the problem in finding meaning in your friendships, the community around you, the beautiful landscape that you observe, the stars in the sky that you look at. It's just that this doctrine of having meaning in anything else other than this imaginary God has been indoctrinated into these people, so they think it's a horrible thing to find meaning in anything else other than this God.
That even if you don't worship God, there is something you're worshiping. Like in Africa, there are people who worship mountains some days. There are people who worship ancestors. There are people who worship rivers. Because you could look for something to worship, and if you don't find the real God, then you will find a different thing to worship, but the element of worship is in us. So anybody who's denying that is there's no God, I guess it must be worshiping something else, because an element of worship is in a human being. They know that there is some supernatural being somewhere that should be worshipped.
No, not everybody knows that. That's not something shared by everyone. What is shared by everyone is again, sense of awe, sense of curiosity, and sense of wonder. You only think that because of a lack of understanding about the world. If you have awe towards the universe, if you have awe towards the stars, you have wonder and curiosity towards how the plants are so organized, how life is so seemingly designed, yeah, you're gonna want to worship something. But as soon as you raise your consciousness, as soon as you gain more knowledge and understand that these things are natural, that want to worship disappears. Instead, it's just replaced with a sense of awe and amazement. But at that point, it's not worshiping. You're just impressed by the design, by the things that you understand now.
But they choose to deny because of maybe some reason. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, there is an element of worship in a human being. I believe that even if it's not worshiping God, there is something it's worshiping.
Okay, so what if you believe that? Your beliefs have also been shaped by your indoctrination of the religion that you've been in. So it doesn't really say much that you believe that we would be worshiping something else.
So how do you evangelize to someone who doesn't believe in any higher power?
Some of these things we leave to God, and the Holy Spirit will minister. With us, our work is to share about the person we know, and God we know, and what he does. But the real conviction that will make somebody believe that which you believe is not our part. With us, we plant the seed, and God will do the rest.
Yeah, you're right. It's not on your part. It's on part of that person to search and see if there's actually answers to those questions that you're going to bring up to them. For example, you're going to use the moral argument and ask them, how do you know what is right and wrong if there's no objective morality from God? Or you'll use the meaning of life argument and saying, oh, there's no meaning to life if there's no God. And they'll think about this, and when they can't come up with an answer, they'll go along what you just said. So no, it's not the Holy Spirit doing it. It's a lack of understanding and a lack of other answers to provide for this situation that gets them to be convinced of this position.
So sooner or later, the person will say, I suspect there's something you told me. Like for evangelism, you don't need to really push somebody to accept what you believe. You share the word. After sharing the word, up to him and up to the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit will minister to him. That is what we do, how we do evangelism. Because people who are forced to accept, they backslide easily because they accepted what they didn't really understand, and the Holy Spirit did not minister to them.
There you go. You just explained it. They didn't understand what they believed, and while they believed, they found other answers that were much more plausible than these superstitious beliefs. So then they decide to backslide or get out of the religion because they realized that these superstitious beliefs were actually not providing any grounding for any of this.
Yeah. So it seems to be the difference is that in America we worship ourselves. I think is the huge problem. Secular humanism is we worship ourselves, and that's why Audrey, you were saying everyone when COVID hit, it's like, man, my life is me. If I die, I'm really scared to die because I worship myself. I'm it. Like I'm there.
What an absolute misrepresentation of the atheist position, saying that we're just atheists because we want to worship ourselves. I bet he would also say that we want to sin, that's why we're atheists. I think the majority of atheists are very humble people and they look up to other people to guide them and help them in life. We all work together in order to create a good society for humanity because this is all we have. There is no afterlife, there is no heaven that has not been proven to exist. So based off the evidence that we have, we're going to work on this life and the principles that we have in our common society. So no, secular humanism doesn't say, oh, we're the highest being there is, oh, we understand everything. No, it's just a set of values that helps us objectively look at the evidence and use it in order to have a progressive society. Also, I don't understand how this is a positive thing that we should not be scared of dying from COVID. I understand that morale-wise, we want to be happy and we want to keep up the morale and keep going in the situation. But I think it's perfectly fine for us to be scared of dying dying and not go out and just act like COVID doesn't exist. Because again, we don't know if there's a heaven, we don't know if there's an afterlife. So I think it's very reasonable to act like this is the only life we have and not be reckless and go out and get COVID.
There's nothing else. There's nothing else I care about. I worship myself. If I die, what is there left? Nothing. So, and in Africa, you brought up, some people worship mountains or rivers or trees or whatever. But I honestly think that there is a rise of that culture in America of people worshiping inanimate objects or like physical idols or actual, the world.
And now here comes the most problematic argument that he brings up here. Just listen to this position that he describes and just think about how problematic this is in terms of how much it's going to change people's minds about climate change and how much of a real issue it is.
World. I mean, we have a huge the climate change agenda in America. I don't know how much you know about that, but there is people worshiping Mother Earth. They worship the earth. They worship the ground because they say we have to sacrifice human flourishing in order to save the physical earth. And that doesn't, and to the average American, that seems progressive. That seems scientific.
Yep, you heard that right, guys. We're worshiping the planet by trying to save our home from going into disaster. We're worshiping the trees, we're worshiping the grass, we're worshiping the ground by trying to stop carbon emissions from creating an inhospitable environment for everyone on Earth. And we should stop that immediately. Again, with this whole worship language, can we stop with the worship language? Like, we're just putting worship on anything. We're putting worship on meaning. We're putting worship on trying to protect something. We're protecting our home. Like, this is all we have. You have no evidence that there's an afterlife. So we're going to have to act off of the evidence that we have that this is the only life we have, and we're going to protect this environment for us and our future generations. Also, isn't it man's job to take care of this creation that God has created? I don't think God would be very happy with us destroying the whole planet that he spent so long working on. If you can say 6 days is a long time, but he put in all this effort to create this planet, and now he doesn't care. We can just do whatever we want to the planet. We can just make it inhospitable to all the life that he created, that he wanted to flourish on this planet. Even in your own worldview, that doesn't make sense. Why would God just not care about this planet that he's created?
But in actuality, I believe that actually is regressing. That's going backwards because now we're worshiping things. Like, we think we're so much more evolved and we think we're so much more better as Americans than pagan cultures thousands of years ago, but yet we're worshiping the earth just like they did.
The level of arrogance here to put your own religion, your own belief, your own worldview above everything else and say that this is the right thing to worship, this is the only right thing to worship, is just so arrogant and myopic. Again, it's the act of like, oh, my religion is so much more progressed than this earth worship. Again, go back to all the mythology that's there in that book. I don't think that's very progressed. And again, the only reason you're not worshiping the earth like all these other people are is because you have an understanding of how the world works, how the grass works, how the ground works, how the rivers work, how the mountains work. That is why you're not worshiping it. But when you go and talk about the cause of the universe, when you're talking about intelligent design in the earth, oh, you don't understand how that works? Okay, let me go worship it. AKA God, who's the creator of this thing. It all just comes down to not understanding something and then saying, oh, worship.
So there's not much of a difference, and I think there's an arrogance there in a lot of American atheism. And just like you said, when you don't worship God, you replace it.
There's something you're
with something
worshiping.
else.
There is something you're worshiping. That's true. It's like we're putting like Lucky Charms, and we're saying that it's like broccoli.
Bro, what?
Or something that's like good. It's the same evil as before, but we're just putting it in a different box. We're calling it climate change, but in reality what it is the climate change
Earth
agenda
worship.
is paganism.
Trying to save our planet, trying to save our only material home is not evil. Our future generations will be growing up here. I understand that your guys' worldview tells you that the next world will be so much better and it's coming soon, so we don't have to really care about this planet. We can just forget about it and we're gonna be in the next life. But please have an understanding of other people's perspective when they don't believe that there is an afterlife, because there is no evidence for that, and we want to protect the only known home that we have in this life. life. Wanting to protect this environment, wanting to protect our home, wanting to protect a suitable habitat for our future generations is not an evil thing.
Yeah.
Basically. So I think it is interesting that you point that out, and I think it's interesting to see how in other countries, it's a more, I think it tends to be more clear that they worship the created, and they'll admit that they worship the created. But I think in America we need to get people to realize that they are worshiping something, and even oh well, I'm an atheist. Well, like you said, you worship something. So I think that's a very good point.
This video was full of harmful perspectives, full of untrue statements, and I really hope that Christians are not listening to these kinds of perspectives and acting like trying to save the planet is worshiping the earth. I hope that some of these Christians can get along with the scientific findings that we're finding out and how the planet is actually heating up and how we're destroying it because if we want to be comfortable, and they stop saying everything is worship, worship, worship when we find meaning in something or when we try to save something from getting destroyed. But anyways, that's all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please comment below on what you think about this. Leave a like if you liked the video and subscribe if you find my content useful or enjoyable or insightful in any way. And thank you guys so much for watching.